Is this Michael here on the phone?
This is. How's it going, Bart?
Hey, Michael, what's going on? Are you a first-time caller, Michael?
I am.
Oh, cool. Where are you playing out of?
I was playing out of the Gardens Casino
Ah, the
in LA.
Gardens Casino. I remember when that place was a tent. Literally, it was a tent. It was not a permanent structure. This was way back in the early 2000s. What's the size of the game you're playing?
So I was playing 5-5, 600 max with 1K effective.
1,000 effective. Okay. But there is a larger game going as well at the same time, or?
Yeah, so they have like a 5-10 game, and they also have like a 5-10 like bounty game that actually gets like really big. So they have actually a couple games bigger.
Okay. All right, so 5-5 at the Gardens. We used to call it Hawaiian Gardens. 1K effective. Okay, start us off here.
So first I want to note that I mentioned to the table that this was gonna be my last hand of the night.
Okay.
And I looked down under the gun at King of Clubs, King of Spades,
King of Clubs, King of Spades, last hand of the night. Okay.
and I raised it to 20.
Okay. Is that about the standard open?
That was the standard open.
Okay. So hero with black kings to 20 from under the gun.
And the villain in this hand, 3 bets from under the gun +1 to 60.
That's a tight configuration. Tight meaning like,
As tight as it gets.
yeah. Just to 60 though. 3 bets to 60. I mean, you guys are playing 200 big blinds deep. So 20 +1, 3 bets to 60. Okay.
It folds to me, back to under the gun, and I 4-bet him to 170 and villain calls.
So hero 4 bets to 170, which is just under 3x from out of position, not a cold 4-bet. Hero 4 bets to 170 and +1 calls. Just a little thing here, and I know I've talked about this before. In this tight configuration, King is not always 4-bet here. I think even sometimes it might even be like 50-50 4-bet, 50-50 call. Heads up, of course. If anybody else comes in, it's always, you're always 4-betting because of the dead money. But what you're supposed to always be 4-betting is ace-ace and ace-king suited. Did you ever consider just calling here?
No, but
Okay.
it was because of the player I was playing against. He was very loose, aggressive,
Okay.
and I've only been playing with him for about 10 minutes, and I feel like I already had a pretty reliable kind of like read on him because he massively overvalued one hand and massively like called extremely loose, I should say, on another hand in that short time frame. So I already knew this guy wasn't like a standard player.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this on my little Reddit video from a couple of weeks ago. There was a question about if you don't know the players, like there's this guy asked me a question about like traveling around. He says he plays in like foreign player pools where he doesn't know the players. How do you determine, like, how do you make adjustments like on the fly? And I say the most important thing you can do right off the bat is look at showdowns. It sounds to me like that's exactly what you did. And if you see a guy playing like a weird hand from like early position, like Jack 5 suited or something like that, you know that the guy's out to lunch, right? Or it probably isn't a good player. And you can make a lot of assumptions very, very quickly by paying attention to showdowns, lack of thin value bets at the end, playing it like a hand really strangely. Seems like you were paying attention to that. And that's quite common too when you play in these gigantic fields at the World Series where you don't know any of the players. If this guy you're saying is loose aggressive and you've just seen hands that he was way too wide, then obviously it's a 4-bet 100% for value, right, with King. So looks like the pot's 340.
Correct.
Okay, let's go to the flop.
So the flop comes out ace of hearts, 10 of hearts, 6 of hearts.
And you've got black kings.
Correct.
Yeah, this is always interesting because we don't get into a lot of 4-bet pots live. And usually when you're the 4-better, you have a very, very high c-bet percentage at a very, for kind of a small sizing, especially like when you're going to, what you're basically, you're going with less than 3 SPRs, maybe 2.5 SPRs to the flop. And the only boards that you don't see bet are kind of special boards, which sometimes are monotone boards here. So I feel like, though, you can still probably get called by worse here with a small bet, but I could definitely see checking sometimes here too.
Yeah, so I went for the C bet of $110.
Okay, so you want, yeah, for a little less than 1/3. I think you can even get away with a little bit smaller than that, but hero bets 110. Okay.
And villain made the call.
Okay. And now we are at 550. Now, or 560. Now, obviously, it seems to me like you think this guy is way wider than he should be, probably defending to 3-betting and then 4-betting, like from UTG versus, from +1 versus UTG. Because against normal ranges here, he really shouldn't have many offsuit aces here at all, with the exception of maybe like ace king off, something like that. You've got 2 kings in your hand, but it wouldn't surprise me if this guy shows up with something weird. But if you take a look and you're like, well, on paper, this is a UTG open +1 3-bet, UTG 4-bet. What kind of range is supposed to be there from +1? It's pretty tight, right? Defending to the 4-bet.
Oh yeah, against like, most people, I'd pretty much be done with the hand because I would just think they have an ace like, well, actually that's not true. I wouldn't think they have an ace every time, but I'd be like treading lightly on the turn and river because the ranges are as tight as they could be. And I have, black kings on ace high monotone board, so
So this guy, I've never seen this guy before in the chat, giving me the business in the chat. Says you can't check. Oh, he was saying the turn. Well, check the turn. I don't know. You can definitely check this flop because you can sometimes check this flop with ace X here as well. I don't think it's even that hard to be balanced in a spot like this. But let's go to the turn, 560, okay?
yeah, the turn was the ace of clubs.
Ace of clubs. Interesting.
Yeah, and actually just the one thing on the flop too, I definitely didn't want to check the flop because this guy seemed like a really aggressive player.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to like check and kind of get like rolled over by any, whatever weird combos he might have in the spot that he turns into a bluff.
I mean, it's hard, right? I understand what you're saying, but as a counter to that, like you could have ace king with a king of hearts here and easily check the flop, or even ace king no heart and easily take that as like almost like a protection type of part of your range that you're checking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I probably would have checked those hands given this opponent's tendencies. But with like a weaker hand, I kind of wanted to not like just play as passive. So that if that makes sense.
Yeah. So now the turn's an ace, right? So obviously there's less of a chance that he has an ace, but it's still possible, right?
Yep.
Now, the funny thing here, though, about this card is, let's say that you were going to check a lot of turns here. I could still see betting with very small sizing here, especially without the king of hearts. And now I feel like if you check, you actually get into what you were talking about, where now this guy's going to put maximum pressure on you. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you do check, you just have to understand that you got to be willing to call down because you've opened yourself up to this if you're betting most trip aces here.
Yeah, definitely. So I do check on the turn and villain bets 250.
See, I think that this is, again, it's not necessarily bad, but I think it does open you up to giving him some sort of bluffing frequency because it would seem a little bit strange to me for you to play like ace king this way or any hand with an ace on a monotone board where all of a sudden you check. I mean, I guess maybe you could do this with ace king with the king of hearts. But okay, so hero checks and he bets 250.
Yep. And I made the call.
I'm going to say something here too, where again, you're kind of giving this background about this player. So you're making an adjustment. It sounds to me like based upon this player, which is why, you so easily 4-bet here for value. If this was a situation where it was a normal player, or maybe someone I didn't know about at all, I think you can easily just check fold the turn. You don't have a heart in your hand. I know it's less likely that the guy has an ace, but what is he betting? Now, I know this is a little bit different because this guy's wild, but do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I agree completely.
So
Yeah, I think even like a lot of times if someone had like, queen of hearts, they wouldn't be betting that really on the turn.
right,
So they're only gonna be betting with like an ace
yeah,
or like pocket
or
tens.
yeah, exactly, or king queen of hearts or something like that. All right, so you check +1 bets 250, hero calls. Now the pot is 1,000 60, and it looks like you guys have what, like just under 500, just under a half pot size bet left?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the river comes the 10 of clubs.
Okay, so the board gets double paired. So ace 10, 6, ace 10. Okay.
Yep. So I checked it
Mhm.
and the villain jammed all in.
+1 jams all in. Again, this is a guy that is supposedly super, super loose, aggressive. On paper, I would be folding turn, against normal people. Here, he jams all in. So, I mean, you would think that this would be an ace, right? Which is possible, right? An ace, like if you 3-bet a suited ace, say he 3-bet calls all the suited aces. It's a very easy jam with a suited ace. And I mean, I just don't think he has like a 10 here either. Like the way that this one went down, it just doesn't make any sense. So for value, really, it's an ace. Did he take any time with it, by the way, too, at the end?
No, it was pretty quick. It was like maybe like 5 seconds and he went all in.
The other thing I'm going to say here, too, is that it would be very, very rare, especially with the pacing that you just described, that say he had like king, queen of hearts here, which was like flopping the nuts, right? On the flop, because you don't have the king of hearts in your hand. I don't know if he's just instantly jamming all in here on ace 10, 6, ace 10 when the board just gets double paired here like this. That's what we're talking about, like bet pacing, even though it's still only like a half pot size bet. So, if you throw out any flushes that he takes like this because the board gets double paired, now he's repping an ace, right, for value. So your hand is a pure bluff catcher. So the question is, what are the bluffs here? So would they be like offsuit? And again, like it would be betting turn here too. So would it be like a hand like king, queen with a heart in it? If you 3-bet called king, queen, again, shouldn't be called for a 4-bet, but you're saying the guy's wide. King, jack with a heart in it, queen, jack with a heart in it. I mean, those are the hands, like the Broadway types of holdings. Is there anything else here that really would be bluffed out? I mean, smaller pairs that don't play the board, do they bet the turn like this? And again, they got to be in there for like a 4-bet pot, like 8s or 9s, something like that. I mean, you're going to get 3-1 here. It's one of these spots where even against loose aggressive people, I think people do over adjust and they don't necessarily realize that it's like a 4-bet pot. And this would be one hell of a bluff to try to like run you off of like specifically like kings or queens. You would have to have something to run you off of those hands. And again, does he have these offsuit Broadway? So even against a loose aggressive player, I might feel fairly comfortable just ejecting here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think I have a problem with that with these players. If I think that they're like kind of getting out of line a lot, I tend to just call them down with anything reasonable. And so, yeah, I definitely am guilty of calling a little bit too light against these players.
Did you end up calling?
So in this instance, I did call.
So hero calls. Okay. So did he have one of those offsuit Broadway hands?
So he showed down black nines.
Wow. Black nines that called the flop. First of all, that shouldn't even be a call on the flop. I mean, there are some hands that he's supposed to fold out, right? Now, maybe not 9-9 with a heart. So he starts a bluff with almost no equity on the turn. So do you think, let's say the river's the deuce of spades. Do you think he's going to bluff the end?
I think that he would bluff, and I feel like that would be worse for me. I felt better with the 10 coming out because obviously 10-10, there's only one combo.
And flushes don't bet as much anymore, like for that pacing, right? Yeah.
So I would have been more scared on a brick actually. But in this case, I felt like it was the dream run out for me against like a super aggressive opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to flick in the call for, less than half pot. So
I mean, I understand your logic. The only thing I would say to take away from this is you could actually work. These are special boards, though, with ace X being any boat, because you could count the number of combos, though. If he is 3-betting any ace X suited types of holdings and then calling a 4-bet, there's a lot of ace X there. It's not like it's queen 10-6 queen 10. You know what I'm saying? He's
Yeah.
not 3-betting queen 3 suited from under the gun and calling a 4-bet where he might be with ace X. So that's why I would kind of revert towards folding, but looks like you ended up making a good call. It kind of reminds me of the hand that we did a few months ago, tripping my balls off, where the guy from Vegas got bluffed off of kings on a similar run out, and the guy had nines. It was a little bit different. It was on the TCH live stream against, what did they call that guy? The not the Terminator, but T1000 guy. He actually got bluffed in a 4-bet pot where the guy had 9-9 and he checked back an ace high board, and the guy put a ton of pressure on him. Similar run out, got double paired, and nines like bluffed him all in, and the guy folded kings. So interesting hand. Thank you very much for the call.